So eventually, high value target there if ever there was one, as Kelix doesn't have a res to bring him back into it. Deep self-destruct. Oh, buddy!
This week in the Overwatch League, the Dallas Fuel releases head coach KyKy and the player Rascal. Philadelphia and Boston are flying up the power rankings, and we had 7 matches decided with a Game 5 tiebreaker. We've got all the latest news and the best highlights from the past week.
Huge shot onto the rim. Oh no! He can unravel them here. He's got 2. Lynx has been felled. Rockets is the 3rd! The big flake from Pine, and no one doesn't like him!
Following this week's games, the Dallas Fuel made the announcement that they will be releasing their head coach KyKy and the player Rascal. KyKy has long been the focus of fan outrage and has taken the heat for much of Dallas's mismanagement, poor strategies and overall bad results. Rascal was picked up by Dallas mid-season from the London Spitfire. According to the press release, he was let go due to being unwilling to communicate with the rest of the team and not being fully committed. After the news broke, Dallas Fuel's AKM provided a little bit of insight into the situation during a stream.
You could be the best player in the world if your attitude is not great for your teammates. You don't deserve to be in a team, that's how it is.
Fissure, who also left the London Spitfire at the same time as Rascal, shared his thoughts on the comments about Rascal being unwilling to communicate, pointing out that he had similar troubles when joining the Gladiators, and if it wasn't for Bijou translating in game, he would probably have been let go as well. The cultural shift from going from an all-Korean team to a more Western team is huge. Not just the language barrier, but leadership structure and the work ethic can also be vastly different. That's not to say that all Western teams lack these qualities, and in many cases imposing Korean cultures on Western players can backfire, but it's worth being aware of these issues before crucifying Rascal for being a bad teammate. As for Dallas's future, it's unlikely these changes will have much of a noticeable effect in the short term. They're currently on an uptick in performance with the addition of OGE as their new main tank, and it's likely that this will continue into next week. However, in the long term, I don't think #FireKyKy is the solution that some fans seem to think it is. Dallas is a team filled with great players, but with that comes big egos, and coaching that is a nightmare for anyone. Dallas also announced that they have hired a new Korean assistant coach and moved Peak into an interim head coach role, while they seek a replacement for KyKy, expected to be announced within the next week. This should mean that at the end of this, they will have one more coach on board, which I think is great. Many players on this team would really benefit from some more individual coaching, and the more staff they have, the better. As the league has gone on, the need for robust coaching and support staff has grown. The schedule is far too taxing for 2 coaches to handle, and I believe by Season 2 a mixture of 4 coaches and analysts will be the standard, unless Blizzard change the schedule to be less intense. On the other end of the coaching spectrum are the Philadelphia Fusion and the Boston Uprising, who both had an amazing week. Considering that Boston went into their game with New York right off the back of the Dreamcasper incident, taking the win here was massive.
And that's going to be Boston. They will defeat the New York Excelsior.
What a statement from the Boston Uprising after everything they've endured this past week. Boston. To come in and win like this is just extraordinary.
Boston is just fine, guys.
With a lot of pressure on his shoulders, Mistake stepped up into his now starting role on the team very well, and even managed to throw in a little bit of flair.
Mercian doesn't even get it off. It's about 98% on that Valk when he was sniped.
Oh, and now he's got Saya as well. There we go. For those of you doubting Mistakes. What? Yeah, buddy. 3 quick kills.
They picked up a second win later in the week over the Florida Mayhem, but it did take them to a Game 5 to do it. My suspicion here is they put most of their prep time into New York and integrating Mistakes, leaving little time to strategize from the Mayhem. I'm super excited to see how Boston will fare next week as they take on a struggling London and Seoul.
Vanington's out of it as well. Saya player is just a matter of time. There's not going to be enough straight heals there to keep him in it, and Zebasai now going to do the best that he can to stay, and it's not happening. Striker right now, he's on a tear.
This was the Boston team we expected to show up all day today. They saved their best for last, and Boston will win Oasis.
Philadelphia also had 2 Game 5s this week, taking victories over Houston and London. Both of these games were highlights of the week for me. The whole team keeps getting better, but it's the DPS line that's just becoming insane right now.
You got Snell, he's got a pulse too. There you go, right into the thick of things. Finds that low HP target, closers out, gesture as well. Snillo right now just making a hash of him. Triple kill for Snillo. and the D-Mech as well.
In Stage 1 and most of Stage 2, London's Prophet and Birdring were arguably the best DPS duo in the league, but this week the Fusion made them look like amateurs. EQO's Genji and Junkrat were leagues ahead of Prophet on Anubis. Carpe continues to be so incredibly consistent game after game, and Snillo's Tracer playstyle is causing trouble for every team that he goes up against.
Now you got Carpe hunting for the angle. Once again, Hooray can see through walls along with the rest of his team, so that's going to make it a little bit more difficult. Oh, Prophet blinking straight into a one clip. All the bullets to the face. There's the stick. And still with the big plays right now, making it all happen.
As this week comes to a close, Philadelphia is looking like the second best team in the league behind New York. And considering that Boston beat Philly last week and New York this week, I think they've got to be right up there as well. Depending on the results these teams get next week, either of them has a chance to hit the top.
The Reds comes in onto Striker, barely gets that one off before the Orisha shield goes down. Self-destruct, huge! Meko and Arc, great angle from Note to find those kills. Whoa, Sabilby gets a bit of revenge on the mistakes, but Kellick's going Battle Mercy. He's got one, he's got two. And Note with the Bunny Blaster helping out too, sometimes mistaken for Mercy.
Those two weren't the only teams to have a good week, however, as the LA Valiant continue to sit at the top of the Stage 3 standings with only one map lost to their name so far, thanks to victories over the Shock and Fuel this week.
You see how strong he can be on some of these other heroes, not limited anymore.
Oh, Moth gets a pulse bomb stuck to him courtesy of Bunny.
And then he one-put Sleepy after it, you know.
What can you do?
The Fuel did give them some trouble, so I'm intrigued to see how well the Valiant will stack up in the coming weeks, as their level of competition so far hasn't been that high. Their only real upper tier win being over Seoul, who ran a strange lineup for that game. They also announced who their mystery 12th player is this week, with the signing of support player Izayaki, also known as Need.
This is insanity, and this is what happens when everyone gets backed into this pack room.
I love it. You got our team on top of it. Perfect.
Not every team is on a roll, however, as the Dragons continue their losing streak to a total of 24. Geguri spoke this week about some of the miscommunication they've been having between the Korean and Chinese halves of the roster in scrims, where rather than asking for healing, she was actually just repeatedly swearing in Chinese, and that kind of thing is obviously going to continue to cause them problems. But the mechanical improvements we're starting to see from the team as a whole is a step in the right direction. However, as I mentioned before, they're not the only team at the bottom improving, and getting a win still seems like a long shot. They have a chance next week against the Mayhem, but it's still a slim chance.
That's going to be some good zoning actually from Otto, yeah, or from Fearless or Nomi, I don't know, somebody in the game, you get the idea.
Otto still here.
Point B, guys.
Yeah, going to be cutting down. The last member is Mothfall.
The Gladiators have been a bit overshadowed so far in Stage 3 by the rise of the Valiant and Boston, but they're actually sitting above the Fusion in 4th place. With 2 more wins this week, one of them over the Seoul Dynasty, they're certainly looking to make a good run for the playoffs once again. Next week they face the Valiant in the 3rd battle for LA. In Stage 2, this was where the Gladiators found their stride with a 4-0 victory, but with the Valiant on a hot streak, this will be a pivotal match for both of these teams.
Oh, you can get him high value right here, right through the middle of it. Boom! What? No, doesn't manage to get the one. Zumba is gone, deleted immediately. That's big. Jaehong eventually goes down. Fisher will be able to trade it 1 for 2.
The San Francisco Shock had another up and down week, losing to the Valiant, but also beating the Dragons. They were one of the teams that was hit with sickness this week, as their main tank player Super played while ill against the Valiant and was then out of their game with Shanghai. I still think this team has a lot of potential. They've got a very young roster and they're still working on bringing all these pieces together. We saw them include Architect in the lineup this week, and it's going to take some time to get the most out of each of these players.
Some way, coming back a little bit in this fight. Sinatra being kept up by that Moira. It was crucial. Oh, and Agilities hit with the other Doomfist there. Sinatra got the meteor strike so fast. That's insane. Finds Custa with it too.
Speaking of sickness, Seoul were also hit hard by the bug going around the players as it took out their star DPS player Fleta in the middle of their game against the Gladiators. As a result, a number of other players were also pressured much harder than normal. Gambler in particular had a very tough series.
Supervisor was big. Jaehong doing Jaehong things. We'd love to see it. We'll get more of it.
So far this stage, Seoul is right in the middle of the pack, with 2 wins, 2 losses and a map differential of 0. It certainly feels like this is a team that hasn't really gotten much better as the league has gone on. They've stayed around the top of the standings because they were one of the best teams when we started, but as other teams have improved, it feels like Seoul is just kind of standing still.
Look at Miro's face. Oh, this is such a fantastic shot.
At the end of last week, I was wondering if New York would have a perfect stage this time around, and with Boston's upset, that idea was thrown out the window.
Pursues Mecco into the waiting arms of Pyre, and he's not actually able to do much damage to the D.Va at that such close range. Now, he decides to look for Bunny. He's got it. He gets 2. Is this my Pyre moment? Is it happening? Cormat's able to dodge out of the way, get himself inside the shed, but that's 3. A big boss. The family sends their regards.
They also had a very close series with the Outlaws, so it's nice to know that they're mortal. Next week they face the Fusion in a rematch of the Stage 2 finals. This is a game you won't want to miss.
Yeah, great timing there. Just as he comes out, he gets 2. Sammy Obi with 3. Bunny to fall. Oh, great way to shut up the Outlaws very quickly as they start to gain momentum.
The Houston Outlaws had to face both of the Stage 2 finalists this week and took them both to a Game 5 before being handed the loss. Houston have had a tough start to this stage, which I think is a real shame, as in many aspects they're looking a lot better than they did in Stage 2. Their Tracer play, while still not outstanding, is looking better, and their Junkertown game with the Fusion this week was incredible. The level of competition will get a bit easier for this team in the coming weeks, so we'll have to see if they can bring it back.
Can they get there? I don't know if anyone can even contest this. Nope, they're going to roll right in. Well, guys, Ilios, blink and you miss it. Junkertown, blink and you miss it.
Easy game for Houston.
And speaking of tough weeks, the London Spitfire are looking nothing like they have done in the past. Although they got the win over the Mayhem, they later lost for the second time to the Fusion, proving the Stage 2 playoff result was no fluke.
Gets the recall, the rest of his team was there to help him. This is a one-man wrecking ball. I've never seen such a dangerous player in such a non-threatening package in the real world. This is unbelievable.
I don't know if it's just a run of bad luck, but Birdring is not looking like the DPS he was just a few weeks ago. He's losing out in the Widowmaker battles and seems to be less confident in his shots.
Oh yeah, let's take a look at this. Right before that plan hole point comes up. The shot on the Birdring, that is so filthy there.
I pointed out the lack of coaching staff this team has had since letting go of Bishop over a month ago, and like I predicted, they brought on a new coach this week. Hopefully they will now be able to start to find their footing again, as their second place position in the standings is about to be stripped away.
As well.
Oh no, he's not been noticed. Hugger might be in trouble! Oh, 2! He rolls straight into Hugger. Birdring was the one who got pulsed by the Messiah player. Cackling and rubbing his hands together. He knows he's struck a very nasty blow, and the Spitfire now have one more chance.
Last but certainly not least, we have the Mayhem, who took Boston to a Game 5 and posed a bit of a threat to London this week, but although these losses weren't as heartbreaking as they could have been, they're still not wins, and Florida remains that 11th place team. I had high hopes for them going into Stage 3, and I think they have improved, it's just that everyone else has too. I still believe they need to focus their coaching and energy into improving the survivability of their supports. They're just being killed far too easily.
Find the double. Not even really the D-suit at the time. It gets interrupted rather rudely while he tries to go for that barrage. He was brought back to life just to go back to spawn. It's frustrating, but that's what it's like playing against a team like the Spitfire.
Taking a look at the Stage 3 standings, Valiant has a solid lead, but with some stiffer competition in the coming weeks, it will be interesting to see if they can hold on to that top spot. In the league standings, no positions have changed, but that race for second place has become much tighter, as London, Seoul, Boston and Philadelphia are all now just separated by map score. London has a big lead here, but if they keep dropping matches, they will quickly fall down the rankings. Looking forward to next week, we have another amazing collection of games, kicking off with the battle for LA on day 1. On day 2, Boston plays London. A loss here would see London's stage playoff chances all but evaporate, and they will tumble down the overall standings. Philadelphia also play New York in a rematch of the Stage 2 finals, something I'm really looking forward to. On day 3, the Fusion have to play the Shock directly following their New York game, giving them very little time to prepare, and as a result, this could be a more interesting series than we would normally expect. Boston vs Seoul is also another chance for Boston to prove their worth. On day 4, the Valiant take on a struggling London, and New York will face the Gladiators. Which matches are you most excited about next week? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, this is James for Curse, saying thanks for watching, and enjoy the game.